Good day. My name is Maria Porowska, and I am the Broward, Miami Governor for Miami Association of Realtors, Florida State Director, and I am the Vice President of United Nations Association of Broward County. And today, my guest is Dr. Lavern Deer, the CEO for Female Development World Organization, as well as our Advocacy Chair for United Nations Association of Broward County. Dr. Lavern, welcome and thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So today, Dr. Lavern will share with us a very educative presentation called The Human Trafficking, Advocacy, and You. Dr. Lavern, please share your knowledge with us.
My name is Dr. Lavern Deer. I am the founder and CEO of Female Development World Organization. I am also the chair for the Caribbean Anti-Trafficking Committee, a committee that was commissioned by our Jamaica Consulate to raise awareness amongst the members of the diaspora. I am also a member of the United Nations Association Advocacy Chair. I am a former mayoral candidate of the city of Miami Gardens, and I am an advocate that continues to work for the protection of our children and our community. So today I want to thank you, Miami Realtors, for having me today. January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It is a very important month for communities to come together. January was proclaimed by the current United States President, and this is where businesses and organizations collaborate to raise awareness. January, human trafficking does not stop, however. So we ask everyone to continue beyond January to raise awareness and understand what human trafficking is. Human trafficking is the trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial exploitation. There are several types of trafficking that it is very important to know. You have sex trafficking, which is the main number one trafficking that individuals will talk about. You have labor trafficking. Labor trafficking affects more of the male and young boys. You have the trading of organs, bonded labor or debt, forced labor, child labor, and people smuggling. Warning signs of human trafficking includes someone that's living with their employer in deplorable conditions, multiple people that are cramped in the same space, inability to speak if you're an individual. Another sign, if you notice a younger child with an older gentleman and this person have no ID, doesn't even know where their current location is. Signs of physical abuse, submissive or fearful to the individual, or unpaid or paid very little. And of course, under the age of 18, individuals who are under the age of 18 that are involved in sex trafficking cannot consent. So therefore, that is then called child sexual exploitation. Here in South Florida, I currently live in the city of Miami Gardens, and there is a stadium there. The individuals that are involved in sporting activities, our goal is to help to understand that when these events come to your city, it does not just bring the marketing, the fun, all the activities that comes with it. It also brings the dark side. And those are individuals who are coming to make money or coming to bring children, not just adults, but bring children into the area to utilize them for fun, sex, and games during a Super Bowl. The last Super Bowl that took place in Miami Gardens, there were 22 cases of reported trafficking that was found. Of those 22, 5 of them were from Dade County, and the youngest was 17 years old. So we ask individuals that while you're happy and excited because the Super Bowl is right around the corner, that it is coming, to also be vigilant and know that there are activities that bring harm to our children And if you see something, say something. I want to leave a very important number with you, but before I leave this number, one thing that I always tell individuals: if you suspect that someone is being trafficked, do not approach that person. Do not approach the trafficker. Do not approach the child or the person that is being trafficked. Why? Because you're putting yourself in danger and you're putting the person in danger. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, I always say, when you mess with people money, they get very violent, and you don't want to then be the hero by recognizing this, approach this person, but when you leave, this individual life is in danger. We ask that you call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 888-373-7888. Again, that's 888-373-7888. You can also text the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 233-733, 233-733. Now we're here in a realtor situation, and I know we're going to get into a conversation shortly. But one of the things that, as I was putting and getting ready for this presentation, and thinking of real estate, and asking everyone who will be watching this to look at some indicators that I was able to research for indicators of human trafficking in real estate. For example, an open house that has an unusually significant amount of traffic moving in and out of it. If the seller demands to be present during the time of showing and refuses to let the real estate agent be alone, or is overly persistent to the real estate agent, then their motives could be questionable. If there are school-age children who are not in school, but rather they are in the home that is either empty or is having an open house, to the real estate agent, open house, it is worth inquiring as why this is the case. Again, if there are school-age children who are not in school, but rather they are in the home that is either empty or having an open house, it is worth inquiring why that is. When tenants or guests of a home or property lack the knowledge of the neighborhood or the area, this raises concern that they are only in this location temporarily, and perhaps not allowed to explore the area on their own. Remember, human trafficking victims typically only stay in a single place for a short time before being moved to another place. If a real estate agent or individual who is looking at a home notices locks on the interior doors or windows, this is a red flag. Even if the house is currently empty, it is worth raising an alarm regarding those who were in this location beforehand. If one of the family members seemed to stand out from the rest, whether because they dressed much differently, or perhaps they have a different level of hygiene, or maybe they avoid eye contact with the victims or neighbors, unlike the rest of the family, they could be a trafficked victim. These are some indicators that I was able to pull on. And as I'm reading these indicators, and of course, knowing Anna Maria, know how vibrant she is about and passionate about her work, as well as about this raising awareness for human trafficking, I see realtors as a big key because you're out there. What I ask that you think about, how can you affect legislation? How can you improve on community outreach to educate not just the businesses, but these new homeowners that you're selling to, so they themselves can be vigilant? But you have to educate yourself first as to the warning signs, understanding what human trafficking is. But just know that you play a key role, because perpetrators are out there. They're in homes, they're in businesses, they're in facilities. You're out there, you're in homes, you're in businesses, you're in facilities. How can you talk with the legislators or as contracts, individuals or companies that receive contracts to build businesses, how can you impact the community leaders to put ordinances in place for these businesses so they comply? Remember, it's all about safety. And it doesn't matter how pretty, how beautiful the home is, if the neighborhood is not safe, then it's going to affect your bottom dollar and it's going to affect the development of that community. So I thank you for taking the time to be interested in this topic, but I urge you to learn more about it. Let it be a part of your day-to-day selling point. Let it be a day-to-day talking point. Be aware, be conscious, because you never know when you can impact change for the greater good of our communities.
Dr. Lavern, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm sure that a lot of people, a lot of realtors will learn a lot from it, and in case they'll have questions, they can for sure contact you with the questions that they may have. And to start our interview, I would like to ask you the most important question, just in case someone doesn't know how deep and how many faces human trafficking has. So what is human trafficking, Dr. Lavern?
So that's a good question. Think about modern day slavery, right? The trade of human for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial exploitation. There are the various types such as sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and even organ trafficking that a lot of people don't talk about. There are child labor, there are forced labor, and it comes in so many ways. But if you always think about seeing someone who appears as though they don't have their free will to walk, talk, sleep, eat, even bathe, those should raise the red flags in your mind and the question, could this be a potential trafficking victim?
Can you tell us some of the points that realtors should focus on and what to do in a given situation if they actually notice human trafficking happening?
So as mentioned in my presentation, realtors are key to this because you're out there. You do business with government. You do business with other business members. So my first priority is continue to educate yourself as a realtor about what is human trafficking. Okay, it's modern day slavery, period, right? And just think back about a child who is have this freedom of just growing and just playful and just wants to grow to be a doctor. You'll ask, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And then they get caught into this lifestyle, and all of a sudden that joy that child once had just turns to sadness and gloom, depression, trauma, mental health. Now that child is a menace to society because they're now in the prison system. They are now addicted to substance, alcohol. So that joy that child once had of being a doctor has been lost for that person, not only affecting the child, but also affecting the family, the household, right? Because as a parent, sometime, once one of your child is lost or caught into this, it affects you. So realtors I've always seen as the key to building communities because they're always selling homes, they're always in the building of homes. So I just ask that as realtors that if you have not even heard of the word, that today will be a new day for you. And one of the things when I do my presentation, I challenge individual that I am now going to ask you to be the next advocate.
Of course.
So you can be out there teaching individuals. Yes.
We have the voice. We're almost just Miami Association of Realtors. That's almost 60,000 agents. Can you imagine the impact that we can make? Let's talk about it. Let's spread the word. And let's talk to, the mayors of the cities and spread the awareness, because like we mentioned, most of human trafficking here happens during the biggest sport events in the year. And now, going back to kids at school, I did a little bit of a research, and for instance, if a child at school is very sad, and we ask why is that, and they tell us that they're in debt, that's when we should react. But we should react silently, because we can put them also in danger, correct? Can you tell us who to contact when we actually see any signs of human trafficking and we think that something very wrong is happening, and maybe we don't necessarily want to go to the parents, because the parents might be the ones that are actually playing a role for human trafficking?
And that is true. So if you're in the school environment, I would say that it's a safer environment versus if you're on the street. So let's say you're in a restaurant and you see a child with an elder person, and the child looks as though they can't even order for themselves, or the person sitting across them is eating this big meal and they're maybe just having a fry, but they're hungry. They look dirty, and it's a concern to you. Then I wouldn't approach that child nor the potential perpetrator. I would call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 888-373-7888. Again, 888-373-7888. Now, if you're in the school system and a child comes to you and someone, they may see you and trust you, then you have an authority within the schools, oftentimes the counselors within the schools. Now, because of the advocacy that our organization, myself, have done working with Florida legislators to make Florida the first state to teach human trafficking education in schools, the schools now are mandated to teach it, so they are aware of it. That was a big win for us, because you have your children and you want to equip them with the resources they need to keep them safe when you as a parent is not around them. So what better way to do it than to, when they're in the school, they're already learning, teach them the danger sign, teach them about sex trafficking. And I want to thank the Florida legislators who found this important to work with me on. And I also want to thank the Florida Department of Education for taking this on and making it a statute, to where now we're leading all the other states within the United States. So Miami Realtors, you have something to be proud of. Our state is leading in educating our children, but you can do your part because you're out there in the community more.
Yes, so it's great that we're teaching the subject, especially for United States being, I believe, the third.
Florida. So Florida is the third. California is the first. Texas is the second, and Florida is the third. And if you look in reported cases of human trafficking, and if you look at each of these that are top three, they're border states.
Yes.
So it just makes it easier for individuals to come and go. So we also have to protect our borders as realtors, not just inland, but also our borders be aware that these things are happening. The airport, thank goodness our airport, our airlines now have put some major, policies in place. But so there are things that can miss, but you now can pick up where somebody else probably didn't.
Yes. And when we're showing homes, what are the details that we should observe when, for instance, we're showing a home where there are a couple children inside?
So I mentioned this in my presentation before. If you go into a home and you notice that it's time where kids should be in school, right? Why aren't they in school? Especially if it's an empty home. If it's a home where family is, that's a concern. But if it's a home that you're showing that no one lives, but you go in there and there's children, they're set up with children, even though you may not see the child, but you may see something that looks out of place as though it's housing kids, right? Dolls, toys, things that children like, then you may want to ask questions. If you go into a community and you notice even the parents that are in these homes, because Most of the time, children are abused or are trafficked. Sometimes parents, we do know, they do put their children out there to be trafficked because they're looking to feed the rest of the kids, or there's some culture who does not see this as a problem or as an issue. So of course, if you as a realtor go in and let's say you see something but you're not comfortable, but strike the conversation. Hey, we're very conscious in this community. We're realtors. We've learned about human trafficking and keeping our community safe, and we want this community to be safe. So, we're asking you to just be aware, be vigilant if you see something. Strike up conversation. And a lot of times you're not going to go directly about human trafficking, right? You're going to use wisdom because you don't know who these people are. This is, again, as I stated, a very dangerous business. So you want to make sure that when you're having these conversations, you're using wisdom with whomever you're speaking with. But if you walk out and notice and still feel as though something is not right in that home, then yes, I would notify the local authorities.
And human trafficking is a billion-dollar industry. Why is that? What are the issues?
Why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry? That's a question. Why is drugs? I believe drugs is first, and then trafficking is. But it's modern day slavery, and if you think about it, you can use one child, one individual, to make rounds multiple times. You can use the drug once, right? Get your fix and you're done. But you have a child or an individual whom you make $400 off that person for an hour, and 12 hours times 400. Yes. Right? So you think about all of those, but no one is thinking about the trauma that individual is dealing with for that hour. They think about the money, but it's a supply and demand also.
So if we want to be against human trafficking, we should be against strip clubs. We should be against pornography.
So that's a very touchy conversation. I'm going to tell you an experience I had with that. When I first started, someone reached out to me online, inboxed me, and said, prostitution is my profession. So this is my choice. And when you think about it, if someone is old enough to make their choice and that's their choice of life, how can I be against that?
If they're old enough.
Again, that's why I said if they're old enough. And that's why in the beginning of my presentation, I differentiate if the child is under 18, they cannot consent. So because they cannot consent, it is now child sexual exploitation, which brings on a whole new different kind of punishment. So yes, if for religious reasons, you believe that, these should not happen. For me, a business is a business. So let's talk about that, right? As a realtor, a strip club is a business. Cities and communities need businesses in it. Can you tell a city not to bring a business in it because you're against the content of what they bring into this business? Maybe not. But what you can do now is meet with the elected officials of that city, share your concern about a strip club coming in, and then ask them, what ordinances do you have in place to protect the community from the illegal activities that we know happens in these strip clubs? And then you can approach it that way. But to say, oh, we don't want any more strip clubs in the community, no more prostitution, that's probably taking on an uphill battle. But there are strategic ways going around it.
Very interesting. Well, this is usually people think that human trafficking maybe only has one face, but the reality is that human trafficking is a very broad topic that we should be aware and we should discuss it. Do not be afraid to actually talk about it, because that's how we can spread the information about it and decrease the amount of human trafficking. So, Dr. Lavern, some of the resources that we can use to actually educate ourselves a little bit more in case we would want to have more information?
So you can definitely go on the National Human Trafficking Hotline, the Polaris Project. Even the state of Florida, the Department of Education website, they also have information. But I like the National Human Trafficking Hotline because it breaks it down per state.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you your state, it shows you the types of businesses that are reported, right? So you can see these businesses and say, okay, this is one I should start with versus this one I should not even bother with. So, there's more than enough information out there that you can educate yourself on. But definitely go and look at some of the statistics. You being a realtor, just Google some of the things, even if you see something and you're not sure, go in your car, what does this mean in Google? Because Google basically tells you everything. And then this way now, it makes you feel more comfortable. Well, should I call the hotline? Should I talk to someone that I know? Or what should I do? But educating yourself is key. And make sure that you save the human trafficking hotline number, 888-373-7888. Again, 888-373-7888.
And also educate your children if you have
Yes,
children.
and definitely talk to, and I'm glad you mentioned that. That's the last point. But let's talk about that, right? Because oftentimes parents are uncomfortable in having these conversations with their children. But think about if you can look beyond that uncomfort, on that uneasiness, and think that you may save your child from some of those examples that I spoke about before, then have the conversation. If you don't want to talk directly and say human trafficking, just go straight at human trafficking, find a segue. If you see something on the news, oh man, that really concerned me. What do you think about that, Susie?
Yes.
And then that way now you strike a conversation with your child.
From what I know, usually human traffickers, they approach children by giving them sweets,
Giving them gifts,
promising them pets,
giving them gifts,
Yes.
Expensive purses. Parents, if you see your children come home with these expensive gifts that you cannot afford, they don't have a job, that's a red flag to ask that question.
Yes, definitely.
And also know your children friends, because perpetrators use children to recruit
for
children.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. Yes, there's so much more to know about the topic, and if you would like more information, you can always reach out to Dr. Lavern.
Yes.
And you can reach out to our organization, United Nations Association of Broward County Chapter. We are looking for advocates. So if you're interested, we're here for you. And please spread the word, talk about it, don't be shy.
Yes, and thank you. And just remember, you are now the next advocate.
We count on you.